Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thanks for joining us. Well, the New Hampshire primary finally here. We've been talking about this seemingly for a year now, and we're just a couple hours away from the final polls closing. The Granite State Secretary of State predicting a record turnout tonight. The stakes couldn't be higher. We're going to have coverage from throughout New Hampshire. Let's first go to Marcy Gonzalez live in New Hampshire.
A lot of excitement here with about an hour to go before the results start coming in. Polling places packed on this primary day. Voters making last-minute decisions in these final hours.
I honestly was not sure who I was going to go vote for up to the very minute.
Candidates making the rounds, trying to round up last-minute support, and even a little luck.
Your father shook my hand and he won. Your brother shook my hand and you won.
Donald Trump went into primary day the front runner in the polls, but John Kasich had a little boost.
For John R. Kasich, we have 3.
Winning in Dixville Notch, the small first precinct to cast and count ballots at midnight.
I just ran into the Trumper. He said, "You killed me."
This election all coming down to undecided.
And what ballot would you like today?
And independent voters.
So who was it?
Bernie Sanders. Looking at the Republican side and the Democratic side, he was kind of our clear choice.
Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders pulled ahead here in New Hampshire.
If there's a large voter turnout, we're going to do just fine.
But Hillary Clinton says this is a fight to the finish.
We're going to keep working literally until the last vote is cast.
And most polls close in an hour, the rest of them an hour later at 8 o'clock. And some of the candidates are so confident they have already planned victory parties for tonight. We're live in Manchester, New Hampshire. Marcy Gonzalez, ABC News. Now back to you.
All right, Marcy, thank you. I have a feeling a few of them will be disappointed tonight nonetheless. Well, our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman, he's also up in New Hampshire, and he caught up with Ohio Governor John Kasich out on the campaign trail. Kasich speaking about today's primary and also where he's heading next.
We're just having a great time. We've been all over the state again today. I feel very, very good. And our bus was spotted in D.C. on the way to South Carolina. Somebody actually spotted it on the road, which is really unbelievable. And, we hope we're going to have a very good finish here, and we'll be headed south.
So what happens next from here? Where do you go if you do well enough in New Hampshire?
We take our snow boots off and put our flip-flops on. We're going to go to South Carolina. We'll go tonight, and then we'll be, that they all got it plotted out. They talked to me about the schedule. It was probably a week ago about, South Carolina, Nevada, the South. I'm looking forward to going down to Mississippi, Alabama,
Do you have
Georgia.
the money? Do you have the organization there?
We're going to be just fine. We'll have the money in the organization, just like we always do. I don't know what the amount of money spent against me in negative ads. I'll bet it's getting close to somewhere close to 10 million now. I mean, there's so much money in this thing, and it's all negative. And the question is, because most observers say, well, you can't win if you don't run a negative campaign. So we've run a positive campaign, and we'll see if we come out of here strong, because if we do, it's a new chapter, maybe, in American political life. We'll see.
Kasich, one of those candidates that many people believe has to do well, given the investment of time that he's put into New Hampshire. I heard about the calendar that he's got laid out in front of him, but tonight's got to go well for him. Another one of those candidates, Chris Christie. And Andrew is at a Christie event. It's starting a bit later tonight. He's been out and about talking to voters on both sides. Now, we're going to start with the Republicans. Isn't that right, Andrew? What's some of the reaction you got from those folks coming out of the polls?
Well, it's amazing how many voters we talked to today decided late in both directions, whether you're talking about independents, Democrats, or Republicans. A lot of people making up their minds in the last 72 hours. Now, you were talking about Governor John Kasich just a moment ago. There's a lot of speculation that he may be the beneficiary, at least from the mainstream lane of the Republican group, of the last-minute surge of undecided voters. We don't have any information to go on just yet, except anecdotal information, but this one might not be a bad one. John Kasich, the most searched-for candidate on Google today, at least when it comes through New Hampshire voters. That would seem to jive with what we heard from a number of voters when we caught up with them at a polling place in Concord, New Hampshire. That's the capital of the state. That was just a little bit ago. Take a look.
Kasich really just kind of, for a small business owner like myself, I mean, he kind of was more more into what I wanted.
What was it about Rubio that got your vote?
I believe he has a plan that we need.
When did you make up your mind about Kasich?
I just kind of looked at all the issues that are important to me personally. Includes the economy first and foremost, and I think that's where he lies the best.
What made you choose Rubio?
I think he has vision and leadership as well as potential to grow within the office.
Now, interestingly, we did not meet any voters out on the trail today who said that they had voted for Christie or had decided late for Christie. He, of course, is going to be addressing his supporters in this ballroom in Nashua in just a little bit. Now, the Christie campaign insists that they are headed to South Carolina tomorrow, no matter what. They have events scheduled. They've issued that schedule. They say the bus is already en route to South Carolina as well. But, of course, all of the experts say, as you mentioned, it is make or break for Christie. If he does not fare well enough tonight, he may not have the resources or the energy to make it all the way to South Carolina, much less further on in the campaign trail. And if you want to contrast that even further, we're getting reports that Ben Carson is skipping his reception in New Hampshire tonight and is already en route to South Carolina. We'll be back with more on the Democratic side in just a little bit, but for now, Rich, let's send it back to you in the studio.
You know, Andrew, a few interesting things that have come out from the exit polling, but before I do that, just anecdotally, we saw all the way in the run-up till Iowa, till Election Day, and certainly even since, the idea that you had these huge events for Trump, everybody reacting to the latest, craziest soundbite he said. Have you seen, I haven't seen with the naked eye, any of this Trump fervor that we saw so much. I haven't seen it since you've been up there in New Hampshire and all the other coverage that I've been watching as well. Has it struck you that there's been kind of an absence of what's dominated his campaign to this point, that he's been kind of quiet?
You know, he did draw 5,000 people to the arena in Manchester last night, so there are still some people who are interested in the spectacle, at least, of Donald Trump. But again, we didn't find any voters today that we were talking to who said they were voting for him. In fact, and you may have played the sound from the one voter who said he wanted to vote for Trump, but then he realized he was a registered Democrat and not an independent, and he couldn't. Now, if that's a metaphor, or if that gives you an idea or some insight into the Trump voters, the strike on them in Iowa is that they indicated in polls that they supported Trump, but just didn't show up at the caucus. It'll be interesting to see if, in fact, the same thing happens here in New Hampshire. I mean, he's got such a big lead in the polls that he has enough margin of error for voters to not show up. Then again, if enough of them stay home, things could turn. And if Trump doesn't win here, you got to figure, well, the bloom is really off the rose at that point, Rich.
Well, a couple of things that came out in the exit polling relating to Republicans, Andrew, and one is overwhelmingly Republicans concerned about the economy. They believe it's heading in the wrong direction, and a very poor view of government, and more specifically, even National Party Republicans. They want an anti-establishment candidate. Did you get that vibe, or did you get the sense from voters you spoke to on the Republican side that said, you know what, I may not like a lot of the guys up there, but Rubio seems kind of fresh, or Kasich seems kind of down to earth? Do you think that they were at the 11th hour with so many undecideds kind of coming back into the fold and picking maybe the least offensive candidate to their sensibilities?
I think we saw some of that, and some of those candidates are the ones who said that they were going for Rubio, actually. They're trying to go through the rhetoric and find somebody that they actually agreed with. I think some of those voters may also go for Kasich. Interestingly, they're both insiders. I mean, Kasich served in Congress and has been a state governor, and Marco Rubio, of course, a U.S. senator. But neither one has been doing it. Well, Rubio hasn't been doing it that long, and Kasich, it's been a while since he's been in Washington. So they may still have some of that outsider mentality, particularly for the voters, Republican voters, who want an outsider but just can't bring themselves to pull the lever for either Trump or for Ben Carson or Carly Fiorina or somebody like that. The sense that I got from a lot of the voters is that this is an issue election for them. It's not just, I'm mad at Washington and I want to go against it, but when push came to shove, they actually did look at records. They actually did look at some of the information that was out there and agendas that they were pitching when making their final decisions. I'm not sure, and won't be until the results come in, who that benefits more. I guess we'll see as the evening plays out. Although the anecdotal sense that I got is that Kasich seemed like he was in line for a fairly strong performance tonight, but that's, again, a very small slice from what I'm able to look at just from talking to people here on the ground, Rich.
Last question on the Republicans, Andrew. Given that there's such a huge population, especially on the Republican side, that identify themselves as independents, there was a lot of interesting, like, Jedi mind tricks that were going on with the phone bank saying, hey, listen, instead of voting for Sanders tonight, who's going to win anyway, why don't you vote for Kasich so Trump doesn't win tonight? And you were getting a lot of that horse trading that was going on in the 11th hour, given so many undecided voters, because New Hampshire has so many independents.
Yeah, I think we were definitely seeing some aspect of that, and that's, 40+% of voters in New Hampshire made up their minds in the last 72 hours, at least according to the latest numbers that I saw. I suspect the exit polls will agree with that. The late break, I think you're getting candidates that voters had been mulling around but just hadn't decided among the last 2 or 3, as opposed to not making any decision about the entire field. Again, though, didn't meet a single voter who was breaking for Christie, didn't meet a single voter who was breaking for Carson or some of the other people who were further down the line. And one last note, I know I've heard that his name has been mentioned as a possible surge candidate along with John Kasich, but I didn't hear the name Jeb Bush mentioned by anybody today. And again, very small slice of the places that we went to, but absolutely no mention of Jeb Bush. So we will see how that all plays out as these voters. One last note. Voters here traditionally tend to make up their minds at the last minute. They traditionally tend to do it in the last 72 hours. So I don't think it's a particularly unusual sign just in 2016, but more the nature of the primary process in New Hampshire in general, Rich.
All right. Well, stay close, Andrew. On the other side of the break, we're going to talk Democrats here. Can Hillary Clinton pull off an upset and stop the Bernie Sanders momentum, especially with shockingly women voters? Believe it or not, Bernie is burning it up with the ladies, especially the younger ones. I couldn't make this stuff up if I tried.